would love if you could start off just a little bit about you, your team, and you mentioned starting with 12 people in your sphere. If you could touch on that as well.
Okay, so hey guys, Shannon Gillbert with Indy High Garden, so out of the Fisher's office, for those of you guys that don't know me. So yeah, when I got into real estate, I had been working with CP Morgan, and the market, it was 2009, I think. The market had crashed, everything was bad, and Steve and Chris and Brian kept saying, get your real estate license, let's do this. And I will never forget sitting in Steve's office and said, I'm only doing this until I get a real job. I have to have insurance. I have to do this. And here I am all these years later. The reason why I didn't want to get into real estate is I didn't have that sphere. I graduated from Purdue. Didn't appreciate the hat either, but that's okay. Graduated from Purdue, and when I moved here, I just didn't have the friends, family, or the influences that I needed, that I thought I needed to be able to start a career in real estate. Everybody that I had talked to had always said, okay, well, you have to list to last, you have to do these things, and that just wasn't in my wheelhouse. It intimidated me, it scared me, and honestly, I didn't believe that I would be successful at it. What I learned is, I started with internet leads, and here I am still doing internet leads all these years later. And a huge part of that, I didn't do my first listing for a year and a half, guys. And it was mainly because I never even thought every lead comes in, including the leads that I get, that you guys get, we're all in the same. They always come in as a buyer, everyone. And my entire focus was sell the house, sell the house, sell the house. So I missed opportunity because I never even approached, oh, do you have a house to sell? So what I'm finding is that all these years we had transitioned from, as soon as a lead comes in, the first thing we do is we get in Realist and we look them up, because they are not thinking they have to sell their house. They don't even know what the next step is. So every single lead that comes in, I don't care if it comes in on a $50,000 house or a $500,000 house, we're looking it up in Realist, we're seeing what the tax records say, and then when we reach out to them, that's one of the first things that we do, and the title of the email is normally their address. Everybody will open up something that says, I live in Tanglewood. If I got an email that said Tanglewood, I would open it up. If I got an email that had my address on it, I would open it up. I think that's probably the biggest advantage that I feel like we conquer with internet leads, and why our conversion is so strong. I think the average conversion, they say, is like 4% on internet leads, and our conversion last year was over 24%. So it's all adding value. It's not letting them tell me, but finding it first. So we've created so many listings. None of our leads come in as sellers, but yet we get a ton of listing leads. And I feel like that's probably the biggest thing that people aren't focusing on. And they're constantly like, okay, well, let me find another home. This one already sold. Let's find one that looks like it. Let's talk to them about their home too, as we're kind of going through it.
You know what I loved about when we were talking before? I asked Shannon to talk about how she's generating listing leads, and she's like, Robin, I'm not. And the more we talk, all these things that she's doing are like generating listing leads, but it's so ingrained in what Shannon does, she doesn't even realize she's doing it. So can you talk about like how you got there, and then some key points that you talked about, like using your current listings, like once you start to get listings, using them to generate more listings around it?
Yes. So I have a listing right now that's in, I think it's called Cumberland Woods. It's like 121st and Cumberland and Blue Springs. The house next door went on the market 4 days after we did. A High Garden agent was the buyer's agent on the one next door. So I have never done this because I haven't had to, but I'm starting to learn that right now we need listings so bad I'll do whatever it takes, because it helps all of us if we can get them, because we have buyers and we need the market. So when I was talking to the neighbors, I said, we just sold, because it's High Garden. High Garden just sold both these houses right next door to each other in the same neighborhood. Are you ever thinking about selling? And I feel like we don't use each other's stuff enough. Like everything that I do is not because it's the Gilbert Group, but we're a team. Hey, we do this, we do that. And really pushing that opportunity that you have in these neighborhoods, one thing that I feel like is huge with my past clients is every single person I've sold, I try within the first about 6 months, and it's a good point to reach back out to your buyers. Hey, I'm going to set you up on a matrix search that is only your neighborhood. I don't know when you're going to sell. You might be here for 6 years, but either way, I found that every single person that owns a home realizes this is your biggest investment. Why aren't you watching what your biggest investment is doing for you? Customer service is probably the most important thing that we do. And I feel like the more information that I can share and the knowledge that I have, which that's so easy, guys. I said it, I forget it. They're not having to reach out to me when someone else's house comes on the market, right? What your clients are doing, I assure you, they're getting on Zillow and we'll reach them. So they're getting on there, they're looking up their neighbor's house, they put in their information, now I'm talking to them. And remember, my conversation is going to go really quickly. Oh, perfect. So what's your current situation? Where are you staying at now? Are you in a rental or do you own your own home? And it's just an easy transition. It's just asking the right questions, regardless of whether you've got a buyer or not in front of you.
I love that. I wrote that down too, because I'm not doing that with my clients right now. So I'll be doing that. What else, like right now with a listing shortage, like what are you training your team to try to help generate more listings, or the scripting you're using to listing leads to help create that urgency?
Knowledge is power. So I don't like change. Nobody does. When the pandemic struck and when you have success and you get to a certain place, you start to panic and think, okay, can this go away? And I realized it will never go away, because if I keep doing the things that I'm doing, it's going to consistently push us forward. So with all of our clients that we're talking to, we are excited about the market. We are sharing stories consistently. Hey, I had 18 showings. If you guys don't have listings now, call me. Talk to anybody in this office that has listings. Call another agent. Ask every time you write an offer, hey, how many did you get? How many showings did you have? You guys will be shocked. Like, one of my houses had 36 showings in 2 days. If that's the information that these sellers need to know. It has never been a better time to list your home. I can guarantee without a doubt, I can sell it more today than any other day I've ever been in real estate. And those are things that once they see that, they're buying into the doom and gloom. Like, I quit watching the news after the first week. I have no clue what's going on in this world, and I'm like it that way. I don't want to know. But I feel like these people are at home and they're watching this and they're hearing this. And they're shocked when I tell them I'm busier than I've ever been. We are going to have some of our best months we've ever had during this, but it's educating the people that are coming in and the outside world and the consumers. So, I've always been one with social media. I don't post a ton of our stuff. We're posting so much more of every house that goes up and down, because it's so important for them to see the activity and that we're still busy. I feel like a lot of sellers right now just feel like they're in a position where they're scared. They don't know what's going to happen. And every single report is telling us the prices aren't going down. We're exactly where we need to be. And the stats will tell them everything.
Yeah, and I think too, in hearing you talk, Shannon, like obviously you have so much confidence, which I think is key in this, and you know what's going on in the market. What suggestions do you have for agents who might be listening right now that don't have, that testimonial for themselves? What would you give them as far as advice, as far as like speaking that same story, but not having the personal experience?
So it really is just knowledge is power. So, I didn't have the personal experience when I started either, but I feel like the more that you are a resource to your clients, the more they're going to continue to come back to you. So we are one of the reasons why I came back a year and a half ago. I was at High Garden for 5 years. I left for 5 years and went to Remax, and I've been back here now a year and a half. One of the main reasons why I came was because of our culture, the act of giving. There is not another office, I guarantee it, that has the camaraderie that we have and the sharing. At any point in time, call me, ask me to go on a listing. I'll give you my schedule. You can have access to my schedule every day. You can come along. So it's getting that experience. And I always say, hey, this is my partner so-and-so. They're going to be working with me today. It's not, they're new, they're learning nothing. Let's go. And, you know, my girls have done it. I can't tell you how many times I'm in a listing and they're walking around with the book. My clients think that they're writing stuff down about the house, but they're really critiquing me and getting the next step out. Confidence is key. And if you aren't educating yourself and knowing these neighborhoods and this market before you have that phone call or you get in front of them, you're not going to be as successful as the next person. So my experience doesn't make me successful. My knowledge is what makes me powerful and keeps people coming back to me.
Well, and I can speak to that. And like when you speak, there's so much confidence that you know exactly what you're talking about, which I think creates that trust on the other side with your clients too. But on top of like just knowing what's going on in the market, like using other agents' listings to generate listings for yourselves too. So you're using your listings to generate more listings within the community. But if you don't have listings right now, you could use another agent's listing
100%.
to generate more leads.
Call the agent. I talked to Julianne Dealey, whatever her name is, today for a half an hour. Do you know what I shared with her? I literally took a screenshot and texted to her how Highgarden is writing their offers that we can get them. Jamie and Janet have written, they were up against 9 offers and 10. They both got them. Like, those are the keys. Share with other agents and they will share back. So don't be afraid to call and say, hey, I noticed that you have this listing. It sold within 1 day. Can you tell me how many showings you had? And can you tell me how many offers you got? Perfect, thanks. Now you're going to make the phone call. Hey, guess what? So that house that just listed down the street from you, it had 18 showings. There was 2 offers, and they actually accepted an offer within the first 8 hours. They're not going to ask you, did you sell it? You have the information. Information is what they want.
Absolutely. So this is a little off topic, but I'm just thinking as you're talking, you have kids, you're managing an office, a team, and your own business. How are you managing your time to make sure everything gets done?
That's a loaded question, and one thing I'm not good at. Honestly, it's follow up and it's consistency. Like, there's a lot of nights I don't want to keep working. I don't want to be doing it. But if I promised someone that I would get something to them, I would get it to them. And if I don't time block and manage, and like, I can't get to leads before 3 o'clock every day. Like, it just doesn't happen. Yesterday, I had such a powerful 2-hour block of calling my leads because I had planned my day out accordingly. I am the first to admit I will put everything in front of calling my leads. We are all the same. How many times do you push it off and you're like, but I got to do this, I got to do this. So I have to get in that mental frame, which when I'm time blocking and setting everything up, I can't always have to do that. So I talked to Jamie last night on the phone, and that was one thing we talked about is, you know, she's like, she just had a rough day. She's like, I just needed a break. And I'm like, that's exactly it. Don't call because we don't present ourselves correctly. So everything for me is just knowing what I need to do and planning it out and, you know, mapping out the right way.
Love it. Does anybody have any questions for Shannon or anything they'd like to talk about here? Shannon, anything else you want to add that maybe we didn't cover?
Just anything that I can do to help anyone. Like, I was new in this too. I know it's challenging. I know it's hard, but I promise you, if you put the time in, it will come back triple fold. You know, I joined Inman my first year into real estate, and I paid my $199 every year because the articles are so valuable. I learned so much. When I'm able to not only talk about our market, but a snapshot of what true real estate looks like across the country, I feel like that's been huge. So educating, finding out, if you have questions, if you have a listing, if you have something that you're like, I can't pull comps, I don't know, what about this? Use us as a resource, because that's the culture that we have here. Is at any point in time, I'm going to need help just like you guys need help, and I want to be able to call you guys.
Something that just came to mind for me, Shannon. So you're getting internet leads and you're using your current leads to generate more. Are you doing any like for sale by owner or expired calls?
I've never done them. What I will say is that the listing leads that I know have a home to sell, you know, we have leads that have been on my website for 2-3 years that we've never contacted. One of the things that I've started to do is say, hey, I have a buyer that I know would love to live in Wildwood Estates. So are you thinking about selling this year? I to keep it on my radar because I need to know if it's going to come on the market. That has opened up a lot of dialogue, and just they're curious. They want to know. So that might be another way too. I just thought of to kind of help gear the seller leads, because they don't always respond, because if they're not ready, they're not ready. But when they do, I need it to be to me. Whenever we also set up my board searches for every lead that comes in. Once we see whether they said that they're going to sell their home or not, once we see that, my board search goes in and we set it up for their neighborhood right away. What I love about that is sometimes we never even talk to the lead ever. But 7 months goes by, I go into my board and I'm like, who's Athar? This is a real client. And I'm like, oh man, he lives over there. And I just happened to be in there. I had just showed a house. Like, I call him. I'm like, hey, those are the things that helps you stay more consistent. If you're doing it consistently, consistency is key. Treat every lead the same way. Get your steps, get your process, and do it exactly the same.
Got ya. Well, that's all the questions I had. Thank you so much, Shannon. I have a ton of takeaways from this, so thank you so much. If anybody has questions, we'd love to hear it. Kathy says, I enjoyed your story very much and find you brilliant. Thank you.
Shannon, I have a question. It's Steve. Thanks for doing this, by the way.
You're welcome.
What's 2 or 3 mistakes that you made early on? And because you were doing a lot of buyers and still do a lot of buyers, but of course now you personally are doing more listings than anything. What are a couple of things that for the people that haven't gotten to where you are that you've learned from those mistakes?
Not having consistency, treating like every lead I would open up, and it's like I would send different things, I would do different things, and it's like I needed a plan of attack. Not talking about everybody's a buyer, and when we're new in real estate, these leads come in, they're buyer leads. I was just like everyone else. I'm pushing them forward towards the next house, sending them, but I never even indulge the conversation of them having to sell a home, which means guess what? When they think of that, they're not going to call me. Why would they? I've had agents, I look through our database all the time. I'm constantly going through my agent's notes. And I'm like, you've met with this person twice and they have a house to sell and you've never even asked them about it. You don't even know the address. And so those are the things I think that probably was my biggest mistake, is not using the resources that I had to push myself forward. The other thing is probably the most important thing anybody can do is, whether it's the IMS or your own CRM, me getting behind in my CRM when I was running 80, 90, internet leads, it set me back. I'd get discouraged. I couldn't get a handle back on it because it was overwhelming. So that was my second biggest mistake, is like I said, at night, I don't want to keep working sometimes, and it's, midnight, but if I promise someone I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. And I think when I was newer, I'd get overwhelmed. I'd have 2 deals and I'm like, and then a week goes by and now I'm so far behind in my leads. I'm upset. I don't like making the calls. Then I get pissed off because someone's an asshole to me. So I feel like that's probably the biggest mistake that I made, was not really catering to the leads that I had access to. And then believing what they told me. So I ask a ton of questions. I'm constantly talking and engaging. And I feel like that's been huge for me, is just getting the information that we need.
Hey, Shannon.
Yeah.
I have a question. Like when you're calling your leads or you're calling neighborhoods, how many times do you try to reach somebody, or do you leave voicemails?
We have leads in our database that we've called 138 times. I just saw one the other day. We have dialers, so the dialer will auto, call for us. But we don't give up. If they've given us their information, we're going to keep trying. I can't tell you how many I've taken my kid's cell phone and been like, I need your phone tonight, because I know I'm blocked because I've called so many times and I've left messages.
That's hilarious.
But here's the thing, those people are going to talk to someone. It might as well be me. I know my shit. So that's what I always tell these guys. They are so lucky that we're calling them, because I am on the other side of these agents that don't know what they're doing. And it's like, I know that I'm a resource. So I don't give up calling, because I know I'm a gift. I know it'll be good for them. So that's the mentality that I keep trying to tell the girls, is like, I know sometimes you're like, I don't want to call again, you haven't reached them. I'm like, but at the end of the day, then they're going to get a shitty agent that's not fair to them.
Right. Okay. Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Shannon,
what ab-
McLaughlin's asking, do you have checklists that you use? And if so, can you share them?
Yes, we have tons of systems and processes in place. With checklists, I don't necessarily have a checklist like for my listing presentation or anything like that. But we do have steps. My CRM is Sync, so I do have steps of, this is what you do, this is when you do it, this is how you do it. We're an open book over here. I always have been. I will share all of my collateral. I will send you guys everything, how I built my team, my mission statement, my vision, the processes. I have every step written out from the time that a listing sells until it's done. Like, I had to do all that because I didn't have a High Garden to help me for 5 years when I was at Remax. This is just a different, we have so much more help here and guidance that I didn't have anyone that I could be like, hey, what's your process? What's your steps? So I had to kind of create it all. But yeah, I can upload that. I can send it to you. Robin,
Yeah.
you can send it out when you send out maybe the call stuff.
Yeah, we'll do that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone
Dan,
else?
I was going to ask, I know we got people talking over each other. Who else? Someone else have a question? I have another one, but go ahead if someone else does.
It's all you.
Okay. Past clients, how have your plan to keep them in touch and to get their listing whenever whatever you sold
Video.
now?
So video, text, I become friends with every single person that I can on social media that's been a client that I know. Once I meet you face to face, you're gonna interact with me there. For birthdays, babies, anything, it's a video. I don't care where I'm at. I'm like, hey, happy birthday. Facebook's so impersonal. I didn't want to be around the 100 ones that you got. It's just things like that. With my past clients, I send out birthday cards, all of that stuff. But one thing that I do is about probably twice a year, I would say. Remember, I'm sending all my past clients that auto email of their neighborhood. But it takes me 2 seconds because I've already got all the searches set up. I'll send a CMA, just the one that has and get that over to them and say, hey, I haven't really put the data together for you. I know you're seeing the listings as they come through. What does that mean? This is what price per square foot looks like. This is what this looks like. This is what this looks like. In other words, your house would sell probably between 280 and 300,000 when you're ready. Giving them that information, guys, people have no idea how much equity they have in their homes right now. And keep in mind, when I started this in 2009, it was cheap to buy homes. It's insane. Those people have so much equity. So those are my clients. You guys don't have the past clients. Pick a neighborhood, go into it and start farming through that link.
Shannon, would you suggest then sending CMAs to like a whole neighborhood, picking, even in Remind, where you can go in and see who's been there the longest and sending the CMA directly to them?
100%. Knowledge is power, and you've got to ask yourself, if you had a $300,000 investment, what information would you want to know about that investment? And that's what this is. You've got to think of it as, this is their biggest investment. So what information do they want? They want to know, what is it worth? Is it gaining money? Is it losing money? And what's the track? And what do you think, as the expert, is going to happen? So absolutely, if you can put together CMAs for a neighborhood, the key is consistency and follow-up. I guarantee if you guys just go and do CMAs for a neighborhood and then never send them anything again, you're not going to get one thing out of it. It's consistently that player 6 months, 6 years down the road.
I love that you touch on that, because I think it's the same thing for postcards. I get a lot of questions about sending out postcards, and you can't send it once. You have to send it. You have to have a game plan. You're sending it 4 times a month, and then once a month after that, just staying in touch. And so that seems to be the consistent message through all of these efforts.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We have Court says, this has helped me so much when I started wrapping my head around that. Real estate is personal, but it's a business investment, and we need to show them that. Thanks, Shannon. So thank you. Does anybody else have questions? Doesn't look like it. All right. Thank you.
I have a question.
Okay, great.
Shannon, have you found it hard, or have you found it that sellers are discouraged to sell because they're scared that they won't find another house?
Absolutely. It's a conversation that I handle the second that I'm in the listing appointment and we start talking. By the way, have you started looking at the market? Where are you at? What are our plans to move? I protect them because here's the thing is I know I'll find them a home. But if some of them are very antsy, they're nervous, I can counter, and I tell them this from the very beginning. Hey, if we get that perfect offer, everything's up to you. You don't have to accept it. You can counter it. But most importantly, I'll put in there, buyers don't have another option right now. They're going to do what you want them to do as a seller. So if I put in there contingent on 14 days of my clients finding suitable housing, they're going to accept that. I know within 2 weeks, and here's the thing, I've had it go one time where I couldn't find the house and the buyers didn't walk, they gave us more time. And that's what happens. So I feel like you 100% need to have that conversation up front because a lot of these are like, oh, I'll just wait. Okay, let me just give you some scenarios of what could happen if you wait. When you go to buy, interest rates be higher. And then I just start going with all of those points. But knowing that they can protect them and the opportunities that we've had with how many emails go out of this listing's coming on, this listing's coming on. So someone in our group put out an email yesterday and I just forwarded it to my client of a house that's, that is going to come on. Those are things that now this client is not ready to buy and they have a home to sell. I sent it to them so I can prove to them, see, look, kind of off market like this, I'll find you the house. And then you just work your ass off to find the house. But you can do it because, go door knock the neighborhood. If you find out what they want, you can find the house for them. It is so much easier when you have a buyer and you can say, hey, I don't need a listing. I don't want your listing. I want to sell your house though. Can my buyer see it? Makes it a little bit easier. Setting expectations is critical in this market and constant follow-up. Someone sent something out the other day and the point, I think it was Steve, the point I took away from it was setting a set time to call my listings on Tuesday every week. That's something that I'm not doing. I'm constantly talking to them, but they're right. They need to know when that next conversation is going to be. So communication, setting that expectations, and you being confident and saying, I got it. Don't worry about it. I only need 14 days. I'll find you the house.
I love that, Shannon, because I have one right now that we need to make it contingent on selling their house. We need to make it contingent on them finding the right home afterwards, but they're nervous that they won't get the money out of their home if they do that it'll be a negotiation factor for them on the purchase price.
Wait, what was it? Yeah.
So I have a seller who they want to make it contingent on, if they sell their home, that contract would be contingent on finding their new home.
Right.
But they're nervous that if they do that would be a negotiation factor for the purchase price, so that a buyer would want, money off in lieu of the timing. Have you not seen that?
Not at all, because here's the thing, the buyer wants the house. The buyer also saw 18 other people looking at this house. So what the buyers are willing to do right now, as long as you guys are setting up that, clearly as a buyer's agent, they'll do it. They'll do it all day long. There's not another option for them.
Right. Jamie, it looks like you have a question.
Yeah, can you hear me? I'm driving. Sorry, taking this call. Okay. One thing I did want to point out that Shannon said, and I think is critical, is setting that expectation. So a lot of times when we're doing a buy-sell side, let's say if I have the buyer and Shannon's going to do the listing, what we like to do once we get through that conversation that, yes, we're eventually going to be listing your home, Shannon will walk through the home. We do all of that before we find their home. We get them in the best position possible when they're going to make an offer. So Shannon's already walked the home, created the net sheet for the seller. All those questions on the list side are already finished. And so sometimes we'll even order pictures. We will get that house ready to go to pull the trigger, so we're not wasting a week once we find their home, right? They're already ready to go on this end. I find him the home, and then Shannon can list the home. So a lot of it is about that process and getting all your ducks in a row, so to speak, to set them up for success.
Got it.
And one thing that I push in when I'm setting these expectations is I also know how to write an offer. I love the sheet that we have that tells us how to, like, the things that we can do to write a winning offer. I give that to my clients. I know it's geared more towards us as an agent, but I give it to them and I say, hey, listen, this is why I know I can get you. And I'm telling them well ahead of time, you might need to go in as is. I'm not afraid to have those conversations because I'm more intimidated to have the conversation that says you didn't fucking get the house. I don't want to have that conversation. I'd rather have the conversation up front that says, hey, this is why you're going to do it, and this is how we're winning the offers. To Jamie's point, I can think of 3 right now homes that we've had pictures on for a couple of months because we know they're going to be ready. We were afraid that if we weren't ready to go and they did find that perfect house, we weren't going to be able to go quick enough. So, like, for the question that we had in regards to, how are you telling these sellers? It's like, okay, well, we're going to prep everything so that way the second that you start seeing stuff coming on, or we start seeing the inventory start going up, I'm putting you on the market right away.
Chip,
what's the worst that can happen? You sell your house and you don't like the time frame. Change it.
Chip, did you have a question? I saw you raised your hand.
I do. This has been brilliant. I want to delve deeper, if you don't mind. Tell me what exactly you're saying, Shannon. When you're on a sit, you're meeting your buyer, you're meeting whoever it is in the world, and you're asking them if they have a house to sell. Talk to me about how you walk them through the process when they haven't necessarily considered it or thought it was possible.
Well, a lot of it's open-ended questions, and I find in the beginning, the more that they talk, the better off I am. So whenever I'm saying, like, hey, do you guys have a house to sell? What does that look like right now? If I had to list your home today, how would that make you feel? And they're like, oh, it's not ready. I'm like, mine isn't either. You can walk into mine and you've got everything everywhere. Let me come out today and let's just walk it so I can at least prep you, because the worst thing in the world that can happen is when you don't know what you're supposed to be doing and, right now you're there. I've gone as far to get into people's houses that I literally went home and took pictures of my own flipping master bath with my underwear and clothes on the floor and my makeup out. And I said, because I promised them, I said, because she didn't want me, I'm like, I'll send you pictures of my own shit when I get home. So I did. She was laughing hysterically. She's like, oh my God, everybody lives the same way. It's like, I'm not going in to judge you. I'm going in to help you. I want to make you the most amount of money. What I find with the sellers is that they don't even know that they don't know what these steps are. So walking them through and asking the right questions has been key for us. If you want to role play, if you have certain questions, I'm more than welcome to do that.
I don't want to murder everybody. That was gorgeous. And a follow-up question, completely unrelated, but it's something we brought up in another one of the Zoom meetings. I'd love to hear your take. Have you ever had to deal with animal hair, animal problem, animal whatever in the house that you were planning on listing? And what did you do to remedy it, if you did?
Yeah, so the first thing I did was take off my socks and threw them in the trunk of my car and my Ugg boots because there were so many fleas. I can remember the house to this day and what neighborhood it was. My honesty is there. In that situation, there was no money. It was a divorce. Wife was in Canada. He was here. It was what it was. I was honest in my description. Here's what you're going to find. This is what's going to happen. And this is how it's going to go.
Well done, young lady.
Thanks, buddy. Always good seeing you.
Hey, Shannon, it's Brett. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Hey, some of the things that happen with when you're meeting on that first listing appointment, the seller is going to move locally. A lot of people, they think they can just move into the other house. How do you set them up for the fact that they may have to store their stuff, or they may have to do? What do you do? I know you always try to make it back to back, but what do you do?
Right. Again, it's setting the right expectations. So we know what that scenario is going to look like before we ever list the house. We've got plans in place. So if they've gotten a storage unit, that makes things so much easier because we've already gone through, okay, if this happens, what's that going to look like for you? Who can you stay with? Where can you go? and how long can you stay there, and what does that look like financially for you, your kids. We've gone through all those scenarios. Where I find that sellers and buyers alike, the only time anyone ever gets mad is when I haven't educated them on the process and what goes on. But the hardest part is to find short-term housing. We don't really have it available here. I imagine Vegas is the same way. It's hard to find, 2 or 3 months at a time. But I've also used the resources of Airbnb. Airbnb has helped tremendously. You've got a seller that has 2 months before their house is going to be done. Great. Have you ever heard of Airbnb? Let's look and see. Is there any houses around here? You'd be surprised because there are neighborhoods just like ours, So we use that as a resource too before.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, hey, Shannon.
Yeah.
Getting back towards lead generation and something that you said, buyers, seems to me like buyers are a good way to generate listings as well. If you've got a buyer with specific needs and you reach out to sellers and you're farming neighborhoods with a buyer, a pre-approved qualified buyer, you're only going to buy one house, but you can contact 20 or 30 sellers.
Yeah, exactly. There's so much opportunity with the buyers and educating them on the seller side.
And I think one thing that I've used, and Kyle says he uses as well, since we are so good at working with buyers, it makes us, and I don't think agents understand, that makes us very good listing agents.
Yes, I have to, because I finally evolved 12 years later where I don't work very many buyers. I maybe have 8 or 10 a year, if that. And so because of that, I have to constantly go back. What are you seeing? What's this? And I talk to other agents. I talk to any agent that I can, and I'm not afraid to ask questions and say, I don't know this. What would you do? Because I feel like that's a huge asset to have.
Yeah, we know. I mean, personally, I know what a buyer's going to be looking for. So when I'm talking to a seller, these are the things we need to do to get this house ready to market. And here's what's going to make your kitchen is perfect. We're going to highlight your kitchen because it'll sell this house. The rest of this doesn't even matter. We're going to get the money in the kitchen or in the master or wherever it is. I think, and I really have never really communicated that as buyers agents, we need to highlight the fact that we are very experienced in knowing what buyers want.
Yep.
And that's what sellers want. They want a buyer.
Yes. And that's where on our team, that's kind of why we do it the way that we do. Like, I do the listing side and the girls do the buy side, and it makes it a lot easier because I can say, hey, these buyers agents, they're 100 times better than me. They know the market 100 times better than me because they're out in it every flipping day. They're seeing the activity. They're knowing what's out there, and they're knowing they're going to come in and they're going to know that your carpets are shit and everything else has so much more to offer than this house. Whereas if I was only doing listings and I had nothing to do with buyers, I wouldn't understand that buyer mentality about those certain things.
Absolutely.
And like I said, it was a year and a half before I did my first listing. I perfected my buy side before I kind of went into it.
Shannon, I love how much you're just you and the cuss words fly and you say it like it is. I'm sure you are, but are you this way with your clients as well?
Come on.
I know you are. And do you feel like that makes you more relatable to them?
I'm just me. Like, it just is what it is. I think they know I'm genuine. Like, they're going to know what I think and what I feel. And it's just, I kind of wear it all on my sleeves at times, which is good and bad. But yeah, I feel like it puts them at a comfortable level because they feel like I'm not going to treat them any different than I would treat my mom when selling a house. They want to trust me, and that builds a trust factor.
Right. Yeah. I love that. Anyone else? We're getting close to that 12 o'clock time frame, but we're happy to take on any more questions if anybody has any. All right, Shannon, this has been amazing. Thank you so much. Yes. All right, everybody have a great weekend. Happy Mother's Day on Sunday to all the moms out there.
Thanks,
All
guys.
right.
Good seeing everybody.
Bye.
Call me if you need me.